Welcome, curious minds, to the deep dive. Basketball, it's more than just a game, right? It's like practically a global religion, so deeply ingrained in cultures worldwide.
Absolutely. It's everywhere.
But have you ever stopped to think about how a sport that seems so consistent, so, universal in its appeal, could actually have a history so wildly varied, so surprising, and sometimes, honestly, a little barbaric?
It really is a journey of constant reinvention. It's true. Most of us just see the sleek, modern game, the superstars, the perfectly executed plays.
Right.
We don't often look under the hood, so to speak, to see how it all came to be and just how much has changed over time.
Absolutely. And that's our mission today.
Right.
In this deep dive, we're going to unpack the incredible, often unbelievable evolution of the NBA. We're talking from its remarkably physical, almost Wild West beginnings, all the way to its modern, globally dominant form. We'll explore the pivotal rule changes that shape the action, challenge some common perceptions about players and entire eras, and reveal the strategic brilliance behind the NBA's undeniable international success.
And to do that, we've gathered a fascinating stack of sources for you. We've got historical accounts, detailed player analyses, and some sharp business insights. Our goal is really to extract the most important nuggets of knowledge and insight from all this material, giving you a shortcut to being truly well-informed about the NBA's epic journey.
Okay, let's unpack this right from the very beginning, like way back. Imagine the year 1891.
Okay.
We're in Springfield, Massachusetts, and a 31-year-old Canadian gym teacher, Dr. James Naismith, just invents this game. He uses a peach basket, a 10-foot pole, and a soccer ball.
Just cobbled together, basically.
Exactly. Now, if you're picturing graceful dribbling and elegant jump shots from day one, well, prepare to be surprised.
Yeah, far from it. When Naismith introduced the game, the most popular sports around there were rugby and American football.
Right, rough sports.
Very. So, naturally, the early players applied their experience from those sports to basketball. This led to what historical accounts describe as a truly barbaric style of play. It was almost unrecognizable from today's game.
I mean, barbaric is almost an understatement based on these descriptions. They paint a picture of a chaotic frenzy under the rim.
Total chaos.
Players were grappling, pulling, pushing, tackling, even slamming into one another. It sounds less like basketball and more like, I don't know, a wrestling match with a ball somehow involved. And here's a fact that truly blew my mind. The very first game ever held between 18 male students lasted 30 minutes and ended with an astonishing final score of 1-0.
1 point and half an hour.
1-0. Can you even imagine being a spectator at that game? Like, what were they even doing for 30 minutes?
It definitely highlights the initial lack of, well, refined rules or strategies. It makes you wonder what the coach's halftime talk must have been like. Okay, guys, let's try scoring.
Yeah, maybe.
As for equipment, those original peach baskets, they were quickly replaced by steel cages in the early 1900s.
Steel cages?
Seriously. Yep, designed to keep the ball in play and maybe keep the fans from interfering too much.
Yeah.
But everyone was tremendously relieved when those cages were eventually replaced by rope mesh nets.
I bet.
Yeah, this significantly reduced injuries, which were apparently pretty common with those rigid steel structures.
So what's truly remarkable here is how the game literally evolved through rule changes, often in direct response to problems or sometimes hilariously to contain just one single dominant player.
It's a testament to the league's incredible capacity for self-correction, really.
Totally. Without these interventions, basketball might look entirely different today.
Yeah.
It's like this constant tug of war between power and finesse, offense and defense.
Absolutely. And one of the earliest significant rule changes was the offensive 3-second rule, introduced way back in 1936.
Yeah.
This was designed to prevent players from just, camping out on the offensive key, tuning the game into this stagnant, less dynamic affair. They wanted movement.
Makes sense. And then, in 1947, they went even further. They banned zone defense entirely.
Right. The idea there was to reduce defensive resistance and really favor offensive play, especially from the emerging superstars of the era. They wanted high-scoring, exciting offense, more points, more fans.
They certainly got it. And when George Mikan, the first Lakers legend and one of the NBA's earliest dominant big men, started just taking over in the early 1950s, well, the league had to react.
Yep. In 1951, they doubled the lane, expanding it from 6 feet to 12 feet. That's about 1.83 to 3.66 meters, specifically to try and curb his physical dominance near the basket.
Just for Mikan,
So
basically.
largely, yeah. But Mikan wasn't the last dominant big man to challenge the court dimensions. Fast forward to 1964, and you have Wilt Chamberlain, who was just an absolute athletic and physical marvel.
Unstoppable.
Pretty much. He pushed the boundaries so much that they had to expand the lane again, this time from that 12 feet, or 3.66 meters, to a whopping 16 feet, 4.88 meters.
Wow.
Once more, in an attempt to contain his sheer superiority down low. It's wild to think individual players quite literally reshaped the court.
That really raises an important question about the pace of the game, too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Imagine this. In 1954, a game ended with a score of 19-18.
19 to 18, lowest scoring game in history. Apparently one team just held the ball for ages, waiting for the perfect shot.
So boring.
Exactly. Daniel Bisson, the owner of the Syracuse Nationals, came up with a revolutionary idea, the 24-second shot clock.
The savior of modern basketball pace.
Pretty much. It was introduced to encourage faster play, more shots, and generally favor the game by making it more exciting. And it worked beautifully. Still does.
That's a true revolution, setting the tempo we still know today.
Yeah.
And the rule changes kept coming, didn't they? Always trying to make the game more fluid and exciting for the fans. In 1979, hand checking was banned.
Right. That rule change was specifically intended to make the offensive phase more exciting by preventing defenders from impeding opponents' movement with their hands or arms. You couldn't just ride the guy anymore.
Opened up driving lanes, I imagine.
Definitely. And then a year later, in 1980, came arguably the biggest game changer that reshaped offensive strategy, the three-point line.
Ah, yes, the three ball.
It was a true revolution, encouraging faster plays and longer range shooting, drastically impacting possession duration and, how offenses are structured even today. No longer was everything just crammed near the basket.
And speaking of physical play, the flagrant foul rule has an interesting evolution, too. It really shows how the league continuously tried to balance excitement with player safety.
Yeah, it was originally introduced in 1980, defined as a move that puts the safety or health of the opposing player at risk. But initially, well, it was treated almost like a common foul.
Really? How so?
The coach of the fouled team just chose who shot the 2 free throws. That was it. So this meant that unnecessary roughness often had no additional penalty beyond a normal foul. Players could hit hard without much extra consequence.
So the deterrent wasn't really there yet.
Not really. That changed drastically in 1990. The rule was modified. 2-shot penalty plus possession of the basketball and potential disqualification for the offender.
Okay, that's serious.
Yeah. Sources indicate this made the game significantly less punishing, basically, overnight. Players really had to think twice before committing a truly egregious foul.
Okay, fast forward to the more modern era. The league is still tweaking things, right? Balancing offense and defense, the flow of the game.
Yeah.
In the 2001-02 season, the defensive 3-second violation was introduced.
That required defenders to be actively guarding an opponent when they were in the painted area, the lane, for more than 3 seconds.
What was the impact of that?
Well, it had a pretty profound impact, actually. Before 2001, big men could simply, camp under the basket, providing constant rim protection. It made it really challenging to get to the hoop.
Like a permanent roadblock.
Exactly. With the new rules, centers had to move more. They had to be engaged with an offensive player. This led to fewer contested dunks and layups compared to the pre-2001 era.
Interesting.
And interestingly, zone defense, which had been banned for decades to favor offense, was legalized again in 2002. This notably occurred during Shaquille O'Neal's most dominant years.
Trying to find ways to stop Shaq.
Pretty much. It gave defenses new ways, or rather, old ways revisited, to try and contain powerful offensive players like him.
You know what else has evolved dramatically alongside the rules? Maybe not always for the better. The art of the flop.
Oh, boy. The flop.
And when I say art, I mean acting. Pure theater sometimes.
The flop. Yeah, to many fans, it's one of the most disgusting, vile, and disgraceful displays in basketball.
Strong words, but understandable.
Well, it's essentially an intentional fall or stagger after little or sometimes no physical contact, designed specifically to trick the referee into calling a foul.
Right.
By its very nature, it's extremely deceitful and requires, plenty of dramatic acting. It's truly a test of how convincing you can be without actually being hit hard.
But it's not just a modern thing, right? You might think it's like a YouTube-era invention.
Not at all.
But we found that Frank Ramsey, a Boston Celtic, 7-time NBA champion from the 1960s, openly admitted to flopping.
He did. He was even nicknamed the Master of Deception, and apparently fans often booed and heckled him specifically for it.
Wow.
Unfortunately, given the era, there's very little footage of his performances.
Shame. Or maybe not.
Maybe not. But while Ramsey might have been an early pioneer, it was really Vlade Divac in the 1990s who made flopping, well, famous.
Oh yeah, Divac. I remember that.
His dramatic flopping theatrics were notorious. He even contributed, kind of unfairly, to the stereotype of European players being soft athletes back then.
Which is ironic.
Totally ironic, considering his massive size made his, sudden toppling appear truly absurd sometimes.
And it certainly hasn't gone away. Prominent modern players. I mean, Chris Paul, LeBron James, Marcus Smart, James Harden. They've all been known for their flopping prowess at times.
For sure. The league has tried to curb it, though. For a long time, their efforts were, well, pretty toothless.
How so?
Well, in 2012, they introduced a no flopping rule. It started with a warning, then fines in $5,000 increments.
Okay, sounds reasonable.
But it was, as our sources put it, painfully under-enforced. In 11 seasons, only 31 fines were handed out, total.
31?
Yeah.
In over a decade. That's nothing.
Exactly. Notorious floppers like LeBron James and Chris Paul were never fined in the regular season during that time, and James Harden only once. Clearly, it wasn't a strong enough deterrent, was it?
Not at all. But what's truly fascinating is how the league finally stepped in to change this perception, right, just recently.
Yes, for the 2023-24 season, a new, much harsher rule was put in place. A flop now results in a non-unsportsmanlike technical foul and a free throw for the opposing team.
Ah, points on the board. That's a big shift.
It's the first time in NBA history that flopping violations result in immediate points. It's a huge change in consequence.
And has it worked? Is it being enforced?
It seems so. The enforcement has dramatically increased. In less than half of that first season with the new rule, there were already 19 fines or technical fouls issued.
19 compared to 31 in the previous 11 years.
Exactly. And even MVP candidates like Luka Doncic and Nikola Jokic have been fined, showing that stars aren't necessarily getting special treatment anymore on this. It feels like a legitimate step forward for the integrity of the game, actively discouraging that deceitful aspect of play.
Okay, so all these rule changes, the evolution of play. It brings us to another fascinating discussion. How do we actually deconstruct the different eras of NBA basketball? There are so many myths and realities that get thrown around, especially when comparing generations. And often our perception is shaped by, well, incomplete information or just nostalgia.
That's a great point. And it raises an important question, like what was defense really like in the 1980s?
Right, that's a big one.
If you ask older fans, they'll often tell you it was grown man defense, incredibly physical and punishing, clotheslines, hard fouls.
Yeah, the Bad Boys era narrative.
Exactly. But then younger fans often counter that it was less advanced strategically, maybe easier to score against, and maybe less physical overall compared to the size and strength today. So what's the truth? Why do these conflicting narratives persist?
Well, let's look at the stats for a sec. The 1980s were actually very high scoring. Teams averaged around 109 points per game.
Which is pretty high.
Yeah, actually pretty similar to today's 101.7, maybe a bit higher even. And teams shot 48% from the field, which is higher than today's 46%. In fact, in terms of just pure field goal percentage, the 1980s were the most efficient decade in NBA history. So from a pure scoring perspective, maybe that narrative of just constant stifling defense is a bit overblown.
So where did the points come from then, if efficiency was high and scoring was high?
Well, the biggest contributing factor seemed to be the pace of play.
Oh, okay.
The 1980s featured some of the most fast-break, transition-heavy basketball the league has ever seen. Games were often described as a track meet, Teams like the Showtime Lakers or those high-scoring Denver Nuggets teams, they just pushed the tempo relentlessly.
So high scoring came from easier opportunity, layups and dunks in transition, more than just defenses being bad.
That seems to be a big part of it. It was about the sheer quantity of possessions and fast breaks, not necessarily a lack of defensive effort or complexity in half-court sets.
Okay, but at the same time, physicality was absolutely a factor, right? We talked about the flagrant foul rule.
Exactly. Remember how we said it was only strictly enforced from 1990 onwards? Before that, hard fouls were often treated like common fouls.
Right. No extra penalty beyond the free throws sometimes.
So players were simply allowed to be more physically punishing within the rules of the time. Using hard fouls to set the tone, especially in the playoffs, was a legitimate tactic. It wasn't necessarily that they were inherently more violent players. The rules just permitted more physicality.
Gotcha. And then there's the misconception about 1980s athleticism. You hear sometimes that players were slower, weaker, smaller.
Yeah, the plumbers and accountants myth.
Right, which is often grossly exaggerated.
Hmm.
Our sources show the average height in the 1980s was 6'7", exactly the same as it is today.
Huh, really? Same average height?
Exactly the same. Now, players did weigh about 14 pounds less on average,
Okay.
which is likely due to different training methods, less emphasis on sheer muscle mass back then compared to now. But the league was absolutely packed with freakishly gifted athletes.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, Dominique Wilkins, Michael Jordan, Charles Barkley, Hakeem Olajuwon, Clyde Drexler, Dennis Rodman, the list goes on. These were incredible athletes by any era's standards.
So definitely not full of plumbers and accountants.
Mm-hmm.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the 1980s was often characterized as the toughest era of competition. Why was that?
Well, part of it was that there were only 23 teams in the league for much of the decade.
Fewer teams means more concentrated talent.
Exactly. Talent was concentrated at the top, leading to an era of super teams. The Celtics, the Lakers, the Sixers early on, the Pistons later constantly battling for championships. That made winning incredibly difficult year after year.
Okay, so moving from an era defined by those dynasties to, well, a distinct lack thereof.
Oh, yeah.
What's fascinating here is the 1970s, which our sources call the dynasty gap.
Yeah, that's interesting. Unlike pretty much every other decade in NBA history, the 1970s saw not a single dynasty team. A different champion was crowned every single year.
Every year a different winner. Wow.
It was a true era of parity long before the term became trendy in recent years.
So why? Why couldn't one team establish clear dominance for more than a single year back then?
Our sources point to what they call a perfect storm of reasons. First, Bill Russell's retirement in 1969 immediately sent the Celtics, who had dominated the 60s, into rebuild mode. That opened the door.
Okay, the dominant force was gone.
Then the early 70s saw the emergence of many fierce championship contenders. The Knicks, the Bucks with Kareem, the Lakers with Wilt and West, later the Celtics again, the Warriors. It made repeating near impossible.
Lots of good teams, but no single great one pulling away.
Pretty much. Adding to that, key veteran superstars on some of those contending teams started retiring in the mid-70s, paving the way for new contenders. And crucially, the 1976 ABA merger.
Yeah, the merger. Big deal.
Huge deal. It immediately improved the competition and totally shook up the power rankings of the NBA by bringing in new talent like Dr. J, George Gervin, David Thompson, and new franchises.
And injuries played a part, too.
Definitely. Unfortunate injuries, like the ones that plagued Bill Walton after his 77 title, and key trades ruined possibilities for some potentially dynasty-leading centers to really take hold.
So the outcome was just this decade of incredibly well-balanced, competitive teams sort of alternating championships.
Exactly. Until, of course, 1979, the arrival of two singular talents, Magic Johnson and Larry Bird.
The rivalry that saved the league, some say.
Right. Their arrival reintroduced dynasties right as the 1980s began, setting the stage for that whole new era of Lakers-Celtics dominance we were just talking about.
Which brings us, funnily enough, full circle to today, or at least the very recent past, which some are calling the new parity era.
Yeah, from roughly 2019 to 2025, depending on how you count it. It's seen, I believe, 7 different champions crowned in 7 years.
Is that right? 7 and 7.
Yep. That's the longest such stretch in NBA history, and a really stark contrast to the dynasty-driven past we often associate with the league.
And is this by design, or just how things shook out?
Well, it seems to be, at least partially by design. Commissioner Adam Silver has explicitly stated his goal is to create a system for more competition around the league. He wants a situation where all 30 teams, if they're well managed, feel like they can compete for championships.
Making the league more attractive overall, I guess.
Exactly. And the new collective bargaining agreement, the CBA, is a key part of the strategy.
How does that work?
It heavily penalizes teams that go way over the luxury tax thresholds. This makes it significantly harder for teams to just stack multiple superstars on maximum contracts. It encourages more league-wide balance and prevents, or at least makes it much harder, to form those super teams purely through spending power.
Interesting. So we've talked eras, rules. What about specific moves? You know, it's easy to just assume certain players invented iconic moves because they perfected them or made them famous.
Right, like they own the patent on it.
Exactly. But this deep dive really challenges that narrative sometimes. It reveals how often legendary innovations were simply refined or maybe just brought to wider attention by a specific player.
It really does. Let's take the deep three, the really long three-pointer.
Steph Curry's signature, right? He changed the game with it.
He absolutely changed the game by normalizing it, showing its incredible efficiency, making it a cornerstone of offense, no question. But players like Phoenix Sun Dan Majorl,
Thunder Dan.
yeah, he was willingly shooting several feet beyond the three-point line with regularity back in the 90s, often in clutch moments, too.
I remember that. He had range.
He did. You also saw glimpses of it in Rasheed Wallace, Vince Carter, Kobe Bryant, those heat-check shots from way out. Steph just made it a foundational part of offensive strategy, took it to a whole different level.
Okay, what about the Dirk fadeaway? That incredibly effective one-legged shot that became his signature move. Everyone associates that with Dirk Nowitzki.
For sure. Iconic shot. But our sources say Wilt Chamberlain, yes, Wilt again,
Wilt did everything.
pretty much. He regularly implemented this style into his jump shot decades before Dirk, with his 7'1" height, 7'8" wingspan, and elite vertical leap. Wilt actually boasted arguably the most indefensible fadeaway the game has ever seen.
Wow. So it's a classic case of an innovation just re-emerging or being perfected in a different era.
Exactly. And the skyhook. That's Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's signature, right? The most unstoppable shot in history, many say.
Has to be.
Well, according to our sources, the first superstar to incorporate it into his game and use it with extreme lethality was George Mikan.
Mikan again, the first Lakers legend.
The very same. He apparently frequently carried his team's offense and led the league in scoring for 3 straight years using that exact move. Kareem perfected it, made it legendary, but Mikan pioneered it as a primary weapon way back.
This is great. Okay, the East Bay Funk dunk, the between-the-legs dunk in traffic, often credited to Isaiah Rader or maybe Kobe or Vince Carter in the dunk contest.
Right, they all made it famous. But the first player to perform a between-the-legs dunk in an NBA dunk contest was actually Orlando Woolridge.
Orlando Woolridge. When?
Back in 1984, the very first official NBA dunk contest.
No way. How did it go?
Apparently, it got an underwhelming response and only scored 48 points out of 50, so it just kind of flew under the radar. It's a good reminder that not every innovation gets immediate recognition or catches on right away.
Huh. Okay, one more. The chase down block. That's LeBron James's signature defensive play, right?
He might be the undisputed greatest at it, yeah. Made it a highlight reel staple for sure.
But was he the first?
Well, Hakeem Olajuwon regularly performed chase-down blocks back in his day.
The dream, really.
Yep. He utilized his incredible speed, length, and athleticism to make them a legitimate part of his defensive game, even in tremendously significant playoff games.
Yeah.
It was definitely an established defensive play before LeBron popularized it to such a massive global audience.
Fascinating. Okay, speaking of dominant players and sometimes controversial legacies, let's talk about Wilt Chamberlain's rebounding dominance in the 1960s.
Ah, Wilt's numbers. They're just staggering.
They are. But the common misconception, especially you hear this from newer fans sometimes, is that Wilt and Bill Russell only put up those huge numbers because they played against, undersized competition, making their stats somehow less impressive.
Right, the era argument. But our sources are really clear on this. That idea is completely and utterly false.
Okay, how so?
The average height of an NBA player in 1962 was 6'5". Today, it's 6'6". That's almost identical.
1 inch difference in the average.
Exactly. And for centers, it was exactly the same. 6'10" average height in both eras. So the idea that they were playing against significantly smaller guys, especially at their position, the difference in size of their competition was extremely insignificant.
So the insight here is that you really need the historical context, not just dismiss the raw numbers.
Precisely. Understanding true dominance requires looking beyond just the numbers themselves or comparing them unfairly across eras without context.
So what does explain those incredible rebounding numbers then? Like Wilt averaging 25.7 rebounds per game in a season? That's insane.
It is insane, and it comes down to several factors, beyond just their immense individual greatness, though that was obviously huge. First, minutes played.
Okay.
Wilt averaged 45.8 minutes per game in his career. Russell averaged 42.3. To put that in perspective, the 2022 leader in minutes per game was Fred VanVleet at only 38.6.
Wow, huge difference.
Massive. Wilt literally played every single minute of every game in that 1962 season, where he averaged 25.7 rebounds. More time on the court simply equals more opportunities for stats.
Makes sense. What else?
There was also no three-point line yet.
How does that affect rebounding?
Well, the saying goes, long shots equals long rebounds.
Yeah.
Shots taken closer to the basket, which were the vast majority back then, resulted in easier, shorter rebounds that stayed closer to the rim where the big men were.
Ah, okay. Easier to gobble up.
And the pace of play was much, much faster. In 1962, teams averaged about 107.7 shot attempts per game. Compare that to around 88 today.
So almost 20 more shots per team per game.
Yeah, nearly 40 more total shots per game, which means roughly 20 more missed shots and therefore 20 more rebounds available in every single game compared to today.
Gotcha. More opportunities again.
Plus, shooting was less efficient overall back then. Teams in the 60s sometimes shot as low as 41% from the field, compared to around 46% or higher today. More missed shots equals more rebounding opportunities.
Okay, so putting it all together, their crazy rebounding numbers were a combination of their immense greatness and the unique statistical environment of the era they played in.
Exactly. It's not one or the other, it's both. You can't diminish their greatness, but you also have to understand the context of the game they played.
And when you look at Wilt's individual game performances, I mean, forget averages. Some of these single games are just jaw-dropping.
They really are unbelievable. We're talking 73 points and 36 rebounds in one game in January 1960.
73 and 36.
Or how about 58 points and 42 rebounds as a rookie?
Good grief.
He had a game with 66 points and 27 rebounds on almost 83%, shooting the most efficient 60-plus point game ever. There's even a game where he officially put up 22 points, 25 rebounds, and 21 assists.
The 2020 club. Only one other player ever did that, right?
Yep, Russell Westbrook is the other. Wilt also had a game with 42 points, 30 rebounds, and 10 assists while shooting 100% from the field, 18 for 18.
He didn't miss.
And an unofficial game, because blocks weren't tracked yet, with 53 points, 21 rebounds, and 15 blocks. Oh, and in February 1962, he began a streak of 4 straight games scoring 60 points or more.
Including the 100-point game.
Including the 100-point game. And then the game after the 100-point game, he had an off night with just 58 points.
Just 58. The stats from Wilt in that era are just, they break your brain a little bit, regardless of context.
Absolutely mind-boggling. Now, shifting from the undeniable historic numbers of a giant like Wilt, let's maybe focus on another legend whose impact is seen, but perhaps less clearly understood, especially on the defensive end. Let's tackle Kobe Bryant's defensive legacy.
Kobe's defense. It's quite mixed, isn't it? He has this huge reputation as a great defender, very tenacious, and he was widely praised for his leadership and defensive focus on the 2008 Redeem team in the Olympics.
Definitely. He set the tone there.
And he has the awards to back it up, right? 9 all-defensive first-team selections. That's tied with Michael Jordan, Kevin Garnett, and Gary Payton Ledges.
It is. He's got the accolades, but, and this is where it gets interesting, unlike those other 3 players he's tied with, Kobe never won Defensive Player of the Year.
Well, that's a good point. MJ, Garnett, Payton, all won DPOY.
Right, and Kobe rarely even finished particularly high in the DPOY voting throughout his career. So how do we reconcile those two things? The all-defensive teams versus the lack of DPOY recognition.
Yeah, what does that suggest?
Well, if we compare him statistically, say, to Michael Jordan again, the difference becomes a bit clearer. Steals, for instance. In his first 9 seasons alone, Jordan averaged over 2 steals per game, leading the league 3 times. Kobe only had 1 season averaging 2+ steals in his entire 20-year career. And Jordan leads him by nearly 600 total career steals.
Wow, that's a big gap.
It is. For blocks, Jordan had 4 seasons averaging 1 or more blocks per game, including an incredible 1.6 blocks per game in 1988, which is the highest ever for a guard. Kobe only had 1 such season, and that was in the lockout-shortened 1999 season.
And what about the advanced stats?
Defensive win share is that metric that tries to estimate a player's defensive contribution to wins, also paint a picture. Kobe's best season was 4.5 DWS in 2000. Jordan exceeded that number in 9 different seasons, peaking at 6.2 in 1996.
So the stats suggest maybe Jordan had a more consistently impactful defensive presence over his career.
That's what the numbers imply, yeah. And the eye test, or at least expert opinions, sometimes support this more nuanced view, too. Phil Jackson, his own championship head coach, wrote in his book The Last Season that Kobe's defense faltered in recent years towards the end of his career, that he gambles too frequently, going for steals, and doesn't keep his feet on the ground defensively, often relying on teammates to cover for him.
Interesting critique from Phil.
So the consensus seems to be that while Kobe was absolutely capable of being an elite lockdown defender and would often pick his spots to really turn it up, especially in big one-on-one superstar matchups.
Right, like guarding the other team's best player in the clutch.
Exactly. He maybe lacked the consistent night-in, night-out defensive dominance and impact over the full course of a game or season or even a career compared to guys like Jordan, Peyton, or Garnett, who were consistently elite defenders year after year.
So a great defender, maybe situationally elite, but perhaps not consistently in that absolute top tier across his whole career.
That seems to be a fair assessment based on the awards, stats, and critiques, yeah.
Okay, so while some players build these undeniable legacies and others face their own unique challenges and perceptions, the fortunes of teams and even entire leagues are often shaped by this blend of talent, strategy, and sometimes just sheer luck or bad luck. And few franchises seem to embody that unpredictable mix, especially the bad luck part, quite like the Portland Trail Blazers.
Yeah.
There's almost this feeling of a curse associated with them, if you believe in that stuff.
It does feel that way sometimes for Blazers fans, yeah. They do have that one lone championship way back in 1977, led by Bill Walton. It's kind of unexpected, a real Cinderella story for the franchise.
But then, almost immediately after that high, what fans call the Walton curse began.
Right. In 1978, Walton suffered a broken ankle, which essentially ended their predicted dynasty before it even got going. He ended up blaming the team's medical staff, protested by sitting out a whole season, and then eventually signed with the Clippers. A promising era, just poof.
Gone. And the bad luck, especially in the draft, just seemed to follow them. The infamous 1984 NBA draft.
Oh boy. The Sam Bowie pick.
They had the second overall pick. Hakeem Olajuwon was taken first overall by Houston.
Right.
Michael Jordan was still on the board.
Generational talent just sitting there.
But because they already had a great shooting guard in Clyde Drexler, the Blazers drafted the 7'1" center Sam Bowie instead.
And Bowie's career was just plagued by injuries, never lived up to the potential, while Jordan, well, became Jordan. That's a franchise-altering what if.
Definitely one of the biggest draft blunders ever. They did get good again later, though. They made it to the NBA Finals twice in the early 90s, right? 1990 and 1992.
They did. They had an extremely talented roster led by Drexler, Terry Porter, Buck Williams, Kevin Duckworth. Really solid team, but they ran into juggernauts both times. They lost to the bad boy Pistons in 90 and then to Michael Jordan's Bulls in 92. Just couldn't get over the hump against peak dynasty teams. So close, yet so far again.
And then came maybe the most painful moment for Blazers fans. The 2000 Western Conference Finals collapse.
Game 7 against the Lakers. Yeah. They were up by 13 points on the road against Shaq and Kobe's Lakers heading into the fourth quarter. 13 points.
Momentum was clearly on their side.
Totally, and they just fell apart in the fourth quarter, lost the game, lost the series. That one really has to sting. A real gut punch loss.
And the draft deja vu wasn't over yet. Was it 2007?
Oh no, deja vu all over again. They had the first overall pick this time, and once again they chose a 7-foot big man, Greg Oden.
Over Kevin Durant.
And just like Bowie, Oden suffered career-altering injuries almost immediately. He only played 105 games in his entire NBA career, retired at 26, while Durant, of course, became a multi-time champion and MVP. It's almost too consistent to be just random bad luck, you know?
It's uncanny. And then there was Brandon Roy.
B-Roy. Such a talent. He was a lethal weapon offensively, considered maybe the toughest player to guard in the league at his absolute peak. A true superstar in the making.
But his body betrayed him, too.
Yeah, his knees just deteriorated rapidly. Sources say he had basically no cartilage left in his knees by the time he was 26 years old. It ended his promising career way too prematurely. It's just this whole series of unfortunate events, injuries, and draft misses that seems to define their history.
So what does this all add up to? Is there a stat that sums up this curse?
Well, maybe this one. From 1983 to 2003, the Blazers made the playoffs for 21 consecutive seasons.
21 straight years in the playoffs. That's impressive consistency.
It is. But they did it without winning a single championship in that entire span. That's the longest consecutive playoff streak without a title in NBA history.
Wow. Okay, that hurts.
Yeah. They were consistently good, often average to pretty good, which meant they rarely got high enough picks in the draft lottery to land those truly transcendent franchise players. And even when they did get those high picks, well, the universe still finds a way to screw it up for them, as one source put it. A truly uniquely unlucky franchise, it seems.
Okay, so as individual teams navigate their own, sometimes cursed, histories, the league as a whole has undergone perhaps its most dramatic transformation, moving from what was, for a while, a struggling domestic product
Yeah, it really was struggling.
to the truly global phenomenon it is today. Let's dig into the masterclass in international business that is the modern NBA. Because it wasn't always this way, right? In fact, it was in pretty rough shape for a while.
Definitely not. Before David Stern took over as commissioner in 1984, the league was, according to our sources, ridden with drug use, financial mismanagement, and a lack of international attention.
Not a great starting point.
Not at all. There were even concerns voiced at the time that the league was too black, as Alex English, who was the leading scorer in the 80s, actually noted in reflecting on that era's perception. Games were often shown on tape delay. Can you imagine?
Tape delay. Wow. A far cry from the primetime global event it is today.
Totally. It was hardly seen as a viable global product back then.
But then David Stern came in with this incredible vision. He really emphasized cleaning up the NBA's image internally, dealing with the drug issues.
Right, getting the house in order first.
And then he recognized that the league finally had a product, and more importantly, stars like Magic, Larry, and soon Michael Jordan that could actually be marketed internationally. He started the NBA Global Games Initiative with the very first preseason international game way back in 1984, testing the waters.
And a truly strategic move, one that required significant foresight, was his decision to provide free NBA broadcasts throughout much of China.
Free. Why free?
Well, apparently there was little optimism that this would generate revenue immediately. But Stern saw the long-term potential. It laid crucial groundwork for future success in that absolutely massive market. It was a long-term investment that paid off exponentially down the road.
Smart. But what was the real breakthrough moment globally?
Well, what's truly remarkable here, and perhaps the single biggest catalyst for the NBA's global explosion, was the 1992 Dream Team in Barcelona.
Yes, the Olympics.
Stern made the pivotal and initially controversial decision to convince the team owners to allow NBA players to participate in the Olympics for the first time. This turned the basketball tournament into a huge global showcase. It absolutely captured the world's imagination like never before.
It was incredible. Everyone watched that team.
Exactly. After that, global interest in basketball just surged. It directly led to the emergence of a wave of international stars inspired by the Dream Team guys like Dirk Nowitzki in Germany, Tony Parker in France, Yao Ming in China, Manu Ginobili in Argentina. It transformed the league into this global melting pot of talent.
Stern also implemented strategic marketing, right? Like that I Love This Game campaign in the 1990s.
Yep. That fostered a sense of community globally, made the game feel accessible and cool. But few individuals had as transformative an impact on the business side internationally as Yao Ming.
Yao's impact in China was just immense.
Unbelievable. His presence alone, according to league data, brought something like 3.7 billion new viewers to the league, primarily from China. Think about that number.
That's half the planet potentially watching.
It's staggering. Reportedly, over 30 million Chinese viewers engage with NBA events a week, and there were 3 million engagements on NBA.com a day from Chinese consumers during his peak. This directly led to the founding of NBA China in 2008, a dedicated business entity, a true testament to his individual impact.
And Adam Silver, who took over as commissioner from Stern in 2014, he certainly continued and really expanded upon this global strategy, right? Building on that foundation.
Absolutely. He rebranded the international events as the NBA Global Games, using them even more strategically as an international marketing tool. We've seen the first ever games in Southeast Asia, like in the Philippines, and South America, like Brazil, plus regular events in major global cities like London, Paris, Mexico City.
Expanding the footprint.
And Silver also focused heavily on talent development abroad, establishing NBA academies in places like Australia, China, Mexico, India, and Senegal since 2016. These are supported by junior NBA programs globally.
Growing the game from the ground up internationally.
Exactly. He even launched the NBA Africa League, the BAL, in 2019 to further expand the league's reach and investment on the African continent. It shows a real commitment to fostering basketball talent everywhere, not just importing it.
And it's not just about the games themselves either, is it? They're building the brand in other ways.
Right. They've used non-basketball attractions like the NBA Courtside Restaurant in Toronto or the NBA Park Entertainment Center in Brazil just to increase brand name recognition and make the NBA part of the local culture and landscape.
And the broadcasting deals and sponsorships must be key too.
Hugely important. They have strong international broadcasting partnerships, like with Sky Sports in Europe, which broadcasts over 170 live games a season, and they've expanded the number of international sponsors teams can have on their jerseys and around the arena up to 10 now.
Which leads to big money deals.
Big money. Citing examples like the Golden State Warriors' $20 million per year jersey patch deal with Rakuten, a Japanese company, or the Lakers' reported $100 million deal over several years with Bibigo, a South Korean food brand. This allows teams to create massive new revenue streams while simultaneously boosting the league's global presence. It's a truly interconnected global business model now.
And finally, you can't ignore the digital side. The NBA has had enormous success digitally adapting its product and utilizing social media globally.
They're arguably best in class among sports leagues at this. They've even invited non-sports influencers like Addison Rae or the huge Chinese social media superstar Dylan Wang to All-Star Weekend.
W that.
To reach new, younger, global audiences that might not be hardcore basketball fans yet. And it works. Ray's video content from All-Star got over 49 million views. Dylan Wang's presence generated something like 484 million interactions on WeChat in China. It's just a masterclass in modern, digitally savvy global marketing.
So what's the bottom line? What's the financial impact of all this globalization?
It's staggering. The NBA generated roughly $10.58 billion in total revenue in the 2022-23 season. And sources say that's in large part due to its success in expanding its presence overseas.
Wow, $10.5 billion.
Yep. International media rights alone generate roughly $500 million per year. And the Chinese market, despite some ups and downs politically, still contributes approximately another $500 million annually through various partnerships and media deals.
And this global reach directly impacts franchise values.
Massively. This emphasis on international presence has directly fueled a dramatic increase in the average NBA franchise valuation. It went from around $200 million in the early 2000s to over $3.5 billion as of 2023.
That's incredible growth.
It really is, and it's not stopping there. The upcoming media rights deal, expected to be announced soon, is projected to be an 11-year deal worth around $76 billion, with partners like Amazon, NBC, and Disney ESPN.
$76 billion.
Yeah. And reports explicitly state that this massive valuation reflects the NBA's proven ability and continued desire to grow its international viewership. That global reach is baked into the price tag.
And finally, the product on the court reflects this too, right? The influence of international players is undeniable.
Absolutely undeniable. Just look at the MVP award. The last 7 consecutive MVPs from the 2018-19 season through 2024-25 have all gone to international players. Giannis Antetokounmpo, Nikola Jokic, Joel Embiid.
That's amazing. 7 straight.
And a record 125 international players representing dozens of countries were on opening night rosters in the 2023-24 season. This isn't just about revenue anymore. It's about the sport truly becoming a global game played at the highest level by stars from all over the world.
So wrapping this all up, what does this journey mean? We've taken this deep dive through the incredible, sometimes bumpy history of the NBA, from its raw, almost ruleless origins.
Yeah, the one-yo game.
And the continuous adaptation through all those pivotal rule changes to its current status as this truly global powerhouse.
Yeah.
Understanding these historical shifts, the player impacts, the strategic business decisions, it really reveals layers of insight that go far beyond just, watching highlights or looking at box scores.
It really does. It shows a league that's been constantly striving, sometimes reacting, sometimes proactively planning to perfect its product and broaden its appeal across decades.
It highlights how a sport, almost by necessity sometimes, had to constantly redefine itself, adapting its rules, its style of play, and even its global strategy in response to its own evolution and the changing world around it.
Yeah, it's a testament to how vision, adaptability, and maybe a little bit of luck here and there can transform an entire industry.
It truly makes you ponder then.
Yeah.
What does the future hold for a league that has proven it can constantly redefine itself? If the NBA continues to push boundaries in rule evolution, maybe with technology, player development globally, and penetrating even more international markets, what might basketball actually look like for the next generation?
Good question.
Will there be new barbaric phases we look back on, or perhaps even more innovative chapters yet to be written? What new aha moments, like discovering Mike and use the skyhook first, will we uncover in the years to come as this truly global game continues its fascinating evolution?
We'll certainly be here to deep dive into them when they happen.
Definitely something to think about.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.